just as a basic, common sense arrangement. The president makes a list of U.S. citizens, sends it to the states. The Postal Service only handles mail-in ballots for authentic U.S. citizens. Help me understand why this is a scandal. What part of this is scandalous or in somehow offensive to the average American? It's not offensive. It's exactly what the government should be doing. Only American citizens are allowed to vote anyway. So enforcing that should not be a scandal. Yet Chuck Schumer is throwing a shoot fit, or a shit fit, S-C-H-I-T, whatever. The point is Chuck Schumer's angry about it. And here's what he said. As soon as the decision came out, he was Johnny on the spot, and he came out and he says, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, he says, that the highest court in the nation is allowing Trump to put a dagger into the heart of our democracy. Yeah, he's killing democracy. Trump's effort to turn the Postal Service into a voter suppression machine, listen to the lies, is blatantly unconstitutional. Yet his MAGA Supreme Court is refusing to stop it from going forward. Here, by the way, is Chuck Schumer doing what he always does, which is delegitimizing the United States Supreme Court, telling his radical, bloodthirsty base that the United States Supreme Court is illegitimate, that it's merely serving the political interests of one party, that it's not actually ruling on the basis of the Constitution and the law. It's not respecting Article 2 of the Constitution regarding the scope of the president's powers. No, it's the MAGA Supreme Court, says Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, the very same person who stood on the steps of the Supreme Court, threatened the justices, which later led to some whack job trying to kill Justice Brett Kavanaugh to prevent the Dobbs decision from being released. That's who Chuck Schumer is. He's a bad person, and he's doing it again. And so he's saying that, like, the president is attacking voters and the court is illegitimate. This is, I mean, obviously, it's not shocking, but it's completely appalling. Trump's malicious effort, Schumer continues, to stop mail-in voting, to stop, look at the lies, baby, is nothing but election interference in broad daylight. He wants to make it harder for Americans to vote. Lie. Just another lie. So they don't hold him accountable, he claims, for skyrocketing costs, illegal war, rampant corruption that are the hallmark of his administration. Senate Democrats will fight every attempt to hijack mail-in voting and rig the rules before voters have their say this November. Hijack. He's not trying to hijack mail-in voting. He's trying to stop hijackers. So that's what he's trying to do. He wants to stop fraud. Jimmy Carter, a Democrat president, a part of the Carter-Baker Commission of the early 2000s, by now you likely know about it, did an entire study on integrity in American elections. And one of the core findings of the Carter-Baker Commission was the likeliness of fraud being committed using mail-in ballots. They said that mail-in balloting was the most likely vector for fraud in an election. And states should limit the use of mail-in ballots in order to maintain credible elections. That was Jimmy Carter that said that. Now you have Chuck Schumer saying that we shouldn't authenticate mail-in ballots. We shouldn't protect American voters. If we do that, that's somehow, quote, undermining democracy. So what we're getting from Chuck Schumer is a typical...
And now it's time for the left's fake scandal of the week. Extra, extra.
Yeah, I mean, so look, you can ask yourself something really simple. Ready? Here's the most basic of questions. Why is Chuck Schumer upset that mail-in ballots will only be used by American citizens? What's the explanation for that, chap? Why is Chuck Schumer upset about this? Why in the world would you be throwing a shoot fit about the fact that Americans will have their votes protected by a wise administration? Why would you be upset about this? And the answer, as the chat is coming back with answers to me, is fraud. It's fraud. Everyone knows it's fraud. That's right. Yes, everyone's saying fraud. Fraud. Illegals, fraud. So they want to cheat. Yeah, they want to cheat. I mean, I don't know how much more obvious Chuck Schumer and company can make it. They love cheating. In fact, they're pretty certain, either by virtue of their involvement in the scheme or because they sort of instinctively know, that the way that they derive power is by scamming you, by defrauding the system. Oh, but Vince, that's a conspiracy theory. Really? It's a conspiracy theory? There are over 250,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls in just a handful of states. How does Vince know that? Did Vince survey the states? What am I doing my own census? No. The administration, the Department of Homeland Security just gave us this judgment back in July. Here's the President of the United States talking about it. Watch this, cut one.
Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote.
More than 250,000 just in a handful of states. I believe that was 8 states. 8. So what about the rest of them? We got 50 of them. Not 58, Obama. We got 50 of them. I know that was a deep cut. That's a throwback. And so what's the deal? How many non-citizens do we have on the voter rolls? Guaranteed millions. If you've got 250,000 in just a handful of states, what do we have all across the country? Democrats perfectly content with this.